In 1937, a Greyhound bus depot opened in Minneapolis at the corner of 7th and 1st Avenue, a wide, practical building designed for departures. By 1970, it had become a music club. There's a woman in the green army jacket who appears near the dance floor, blending in with the crowd until she simply isn't there anymore. In Falcon Heights, at a farmhouse called the Gibbs Farm Museum, staff and guides have described seeing a small face near the windows. A boy's face, curious, peering in with the particular boldness of a child who knows the house and considers it his. Toys move from where they were placed. These are 30 haunted places in Minnesota. Number 1. Split Rock Lighthouse. Split Rock Lighthouse, 1910, high above Lake Superior. Workers finished a beacon meant to answer disaster. 5 years earlier, the Mataafa storm had torn across the lake and battered the north shore, leaving broken ships and shaken crews behind. The new station stood on a cliff like a promise, with its lens ready to warn sailors away from the rocks below. Life there was beautiful, but lonely. The keeper's family lived with wind, fog, and long winter nights, while the Great Lake changed moods without warning. Keepers climbed the tower, checked the light, cleaned glass, and listened to waves strike the shore far below. When storms closed in, the station felt less like a home and more like a watch post at the edge of the world. That is where the ghost stories begin. Visitors have spoken of a quiet man in an old keeper's uniform pacing near the high catwalk, as if he is still scanning the water for trouble. Others mention a sudden smell of flowers in empty rooms, or a trace of old fuel near the keeper's quarters, appearing when no simple reason can be found. No one has proven who the figure is. Split Rock was built because people feared losing ships in the dark, so a keeper who refuses to leave almost feels right. When the lantern glows over Lake Superior and the cliffs turn black, it is easy to imagine one more guard on duty, proud, patient, and still silent. Number 2. Wabasha Street Caves. St. Paul, 1800s. Workers cut deep rooms into the soft sandstone bluffs along Wabasha Street. At first, the caves were not a place for music or parties. They were a mine, then a mushroom farm, damp and dark, with earth walls that held every footstep like a secret and kept the city noise far away from the hidden tunnels inside Old St. Paul. By the 1920s and 1930s, the mood changed. The caves became a hidden night spot, later remembered as Castle Royal, where bands played while prohibition stories and gangster rumors filled the city. People came dressed sharp, laughing under low ceilings, never fully sure who might be sitting at the next table or watching from a shadow near the bandstand. Today, the caves are used for events and tours, but some guests say the old crowd never fully left. Men in suits from another age have been seen near the walls. A gentle woman named Ellen is said to appear, and staff have heard a cat meow when no cat is anywhere inside. Heavy chairs have also been blamed on hands no one could see. It happens after the band stops. The Wabasha Street Caves do not need chains or screams to feel haunted. Their history is enough. Miners, workers, musicians, guests, and whispers packed into the same stone rooms. When a chair shifts in the quiet or a sound slips out from the rock, it feels less like a trick and more like the past making room for itself again, slowly, under old St. Paul. Number 3. Gibbs Farm Museum, Falcon Heights, 1849. The Gibbs family began shaping a small farm on the edge of a young Minnesota. Jane Gibbs had lived with Dakota people as a child, and the farm's story still connects pioneer life with the older history of the land. Today, the site teaches families about gardens, animals, tools, and the steady labor behind early homes. The farmhouse still carries a plain, lived-in feeling. Its rooms are not grand or cold. They feel close, with wooden cupboards, simple toys, and windows looking out toward the fields. Guides talk about chores, food, and school days, so visitors can picture a child from another time running through the rooms long before the city grew around the farm. That is why the legend of young William Gibbs feels different from darker ghost tales. Staff and guides have described him as playful, not frightening. Toys seem to move from where they were left. Cupboards open and close. Some people say they have seen a small face near the windows, peeking in with the bold curiosity of a boy who knows the house. At Gibbs Farm, it is the sound of a child still exploring a home that history kept standing. When families walk through those rooms, the past does not feel buried. It feels like it may be hiding just around the corner, waiting for someone to notice. It is gentle, but it still makes the quiet farmhouse feel strangely awake. Number 4. The Palmer House Hotel, Sauk Center, 1901. After an older hotel burned, the Palmer House rose in its place with brick walls, electric lights, and a proud new look for a growing Minnesota town. It became a busy stop for travelers, salesmen, families, and visitors moving between farms, rail lines, and the small businesses along Main Street, where news traveled fast and strangers shared tables. The hotel had another claim to history because Sauk Center was the hometown of Sinclair Lewis, who later wrote Main Street and became one of America's most famous authors. But inside the Palmer House, many guests came away talking less about literature and more about sounds that arrived after the halls went quiet and the lamps had been lowered for the night. Some of the best-known stories focus on children. People have reported hearing giggles from empty spaces and the bounce of a ball rolling down a hallway when no children were checked in. Doors behave oddly. Cold spots gather in rooms, and some guests feel watched from just beyond the warm light, as if a small game is still being played. The Palmer House does not feel haunted because it is ruined. It feels haunted because it is still alive. People sleep there, eat there, and listen when the floorboards answer. By morning, Sauk Center looks normal again, but the hotel keeps its own little night world upstairs, with footsteps, laughter, and questions that do not leave after dark. Number 5. Fitzgerald Theater, St. Paul, 1910. The Fitzgerald Theater opened as a proud vaudeville house, a place where music, comedy, drama, and applause filled the seats. It first carried the Schubert name, later became the World Theater, and eventually honored F. Scott Fitzgerald, the famous writer born in St. Paul, giving the old room a deeper local memory inside the capital city. Every old theater collects memories, but this one seems to collect voices. For more than a century, performers, stagehands, radio crews, and audiences have crossed its floors. The curtains, ropes, dressing rooms, and balcony all hold that special feeling a stage gets when thousands of people have waited for the lights to rise together across 100 years. Workers have spoken about Ben, a former stagehand spirit who acts less angry than mischievous. Tools appear in the wrong place, small tasks turn strange, and backstage corners seem busy behind the curtains, even when no crew is working. In a building made for timing, Ben seems to enjoy missing his cue on purpose, then leaving everyone to wonder. Then there is Veronica, said to be a former actress whose singing sometimes drifts through the empty auditorium. The sound is not always loud. It is more like a final note hanging in the dark, just clear enough to make someone stop in the aisle and listen. At the Fitzgerald, it feels like the show never fully ends. The quiet room waits to answer back. Number 6. Duluth Depot and Lake Superior Railroad Museum. Duluth, 1892. The Great Union Depot opened near the shore of Lake Superior, built to welcome trains, travelers, and new families coming into the North Country. Its stone arches and high rooms saw immigrants step down with trunks, letters, and hope. Today, the old depot holds museums, including the Lake Superior Railroad Museum, where iron, steam, and memory still share the same air. Inside, the trains are quiet now, but they do not feel empty. Old coaches, engines, and tools stand like witnesses from the age when Duluth was tied to mines, docks, forests, and rail lines. Children stare up at giant wheels, while adults imagine conductors calling out departures under the echoing roof. The building feels busy, even when nobody moves. One story has followed the museum for years. A small, dusty handprint found inside the coal tender of a historic locomotive. It looked like the mark of a little girl, yet the space was sealed behind heavy wooden boards that could not be easily moved. Staff could not explain how a child got there, or why the print stayed so very clear. Maybe it is only dust, shadow, and an old machine playing tricks. But in a depot built for arrivals and goodbyes, a hidden handprint feels like more than a stain. When the lights dim around the engines, the empty cars seem to wait for passengers who never quite left, and the whole room listens like a train is still coming in from the dark. Number 7. Dead Man's Trail. Near Thief River Falls, the woods press closer, and the trail known as Dead Man's Trail carries a name that sounds older than the path itself. This part of northern Minnesota, near the Red Lake River, was shaped by rivers, timber, railroad work, and long winters. Even in daylight, the trees can stand so close together that sound feels swallowed before it reaches the next bend. The trail is scenic, but local stories give it a strange pull. Hikers speak of a heavy quiet that settles without warning, as if the forest has paused to listen. Some say time feels uneven there. A short walk seems longer than it should, or a familiar turn appears too soon. Nothing jumps out. That is what makes it unsettling. People have reported whispers moving through the branches when no other hikers are nearby. Others feel watched from deep behind the trunks, not by an animal they can name, but by something still and patient. In northern woods, wind can fool the ears, and shadows can lean like people. Yet the stories return because the feeling is always the same. Dead Man's Trail is not a legend built from one famous ghost. It is a place where the land itself seems to hold a warning. By the time the sun drops and the path darkens, even a simple nature walk begins to feel like a test. You keep moving, listening for one more step behind you, and hoping the trail lets you leave with the same hour you entered in the dark. Number 8. First Avenue. Minneapolis, 1937. The building that would become First Avenue opened as a Greyhound bus depot full of engines, luggage, tickets, and people passing through the city. For decades, travelers came and went beneath its curved front, chasing work, family, or a new start. In 1970, the old station changed lives again when it became a music club called The Depot. Over time, the venue became First Avenue, one of Minnesota's most famous rooms. Its black walls, silver stars, and packed floor helped shape the sound of Minneapolis. Prince brought even more attention to the club through Purple Rain, but long before and after that film, musicians felt the room had a pulse of its own. Some buildings never stop performing. The ghost stories fit that feeling. DJs have reported odd sounds slipping into their headphones when no one touched the equipment. Staff have seen shapes moving where no guest should be. One of the strangest figures is a woman in a green army jacket, said to appear near the dance floor, blending in for a moment, before she is simply gone. First Avenue's haunting does not feel dusty or old-fashioned. Maybe the building remembers every bus announcement and every encore. Maybe some people loved the room so much they stayed for one song. Number 9. Landmark Center. St. Paul, 1902. The grand building, now called Landmark Center, opened as a federal courthouse and post office. Its towers, stone walls, and arches made it look almost like a castle in the middle of the city. For years, people came there to mail letters, attend court, and face the serious business of the law under ceilings that made every footstep echo. The building later saw famous federal cases, including crime stories from the gangster era that helped shape St. Paul's reputation in the 1930s. When the post office and courts moved on, the old structure might have been lost. Instead, it was restored and became a place for concerts, weddings, festivals, and community events, keeping its history in public view. Its best-known spirit is often called Jack Pfeiffer, remembered in local lore as a man from the 1930s with a playful streak. People say he tips over bottles during parties and makes small objects misbehave. An old elevator has also been blamed on him when it seems to travel between floors with no clear rider waiting inside. That is what makes Landmark Center special. It was built for order, rules, stamps, judges, and records. Yet its ghost stories are full of little jokes. After the music ends and the guests leave, the castle-like halls grow wide and quiet. Then a bottle shifts, an elevator hums, and it feels as if old St. Paul is smiling from somewhere just out of sight again in the night. Number 10. Kaler Grand Hotel. Rochester, 1921. The Kaler Grand Hotel opened beside the Mayo Clinic at a time when the city was becoming known around the world for medical care. It was not just a place for vacation travelers. Patients, families, doctors, and nurses moved through its halls, bringing worry, hope, and long days of waiting under one roof near the clinic. The hotel was built to make difficult visits easier. Its rooms, lobby, and corridors served people who came to Rochester seeking answers. Some arrived with packed bags and fear in their chest. Others left with relief. That mix of emotions gives the building a different kind of history. It was elegant, but it was also close to some of life's most serious moments. Guests today have described sudden cold spots and the uneasy feeling of not being alone. The most famous story tells of a quiet woman in 1970s clothing who appears inside an elevator. She rides without speaking, calm and still. Then, before the doors open, or before anyone can ask a question, she vanishes as if the elevator carried her into another year. Its mystery is soft, tied to waiting rooms, late-night hallways, and people hoping for good news. When an elevator closes and the numbers glow one by one, it is easy to imagine someone still traveling between floors, searching for a dim room, a loved one, or a moment she never finished in time. Number 11. William A. Irvin Freighter. Duluth, 1938. The William A. Irvin slid into service as one of the proud working ships of U.S. Steel's Great Lakes fleet. For decades, she carried iron ore and coal through rough water, pushing between harbors while Lake Superior tested every rivet. Her decks saw fog, ice, engine heat, and crews who learned to trust steel more than comfort. The ship was also built with surprising polish. Executives and guests sometimes traveled aboard, so the Irvin carried fine rooms along with heavy cargo. That mix makes her feel unusual today. Part hard-working freighter, part floating time capsule. Visitors walk narrow halls and steep ladders, hearing the lake slap the hull as if the ship still wants to move again. The haunting stories gather near the engine room and the long, empty passageways. Staff and guests have reported footsteps behind them when no tour group is near. Others have glimpsed dark figures slipping around corners, gone before anyone can follow. On a quiet ship, even one echo can sound human, but some sounds seem to answer back. The Irvin is docked now, yet she never feels fully retired. Old ships carry the memory of men who worked through storms, coal dust, and midnight watches. When the harbor lights shimmer on her black hull, the freighter seems to breathe in place. Number 12. 300 Clifton Mansion. Minneapolis, 1880s. The mansion at 300 Clifton rose, during a time when the city was growing fast from lumber, mills, railroads, and new wealth. Its Victorian rooms, tall windows, and carved wood were built to impress, but also to feel like a home. Today, it welcomes guests as a bed and breakfast, while still holding the mood of another century. Old houses speak in small ways. A stair creaks, a wall settles, a door clicks as weather changes. But at 300 Clifton, the stories feel more personal, because the house is known for Gertrude, a friendly spirit said to have worked there as a lady's maid in the early 1900s. She is not described as angry. She feels protective, almost proud of the place. Guests have reported hearing a soft hum when no one is nearby, or footsteps moving up the old servant staircase. One of the most famous details is a historic rocking chair that seems to sway by itself, slowly and gently, as if someone has only just stood up. The house does not shout its haunting. It lets people notice it in quiet pieces. That is why 300 Clifton feels different from darker legends. It is less a warning than a welcome from the past. Minneapolis has changed around the mansion, but inside, time seems to slow near the stair and the old rooms. When the chair moves in the stillness, it feels like Gertrude is keeping watch, making sure the house is never truly empty when the city sleeps after midnight. Number 13. Greyhound Bus Museum. Hibbing, 1914. The story of Greyhound began with a simple hupmobile carrying miners between Hibbing and nearby work sites. From that small service grew one of America's most famous bus companies. Today, the Greyhound Bus Museum honors that beginning with old coaches, signs, photos, and the feeling of a road trip that started in Minnesota. The museum is bright with travel history, but its location gives the story a strange edge. It sits close to a cemetery, and that has fed local talk about passengers who may not need tickets anymore. Old buses already carry a lonely mood. Empty seats, metal steps, and dusty windows can make it easy to imagine someone waiting for a route that ended long ago. Visitors have claimed the windows of display buses open or close when no one touched them. Others have seen shadows move across the glass, only to find nobody standing there. Maybe it is a draft, a reflection, or the building settling. But in a museum filled with vehicles made for departures, every small movement feels like someone trying to board again. The Greyhound Bus Museum is not haunted by ruins. Buses once meant leaving town, returning home, or starting over. When the rooms grow quiet and the cemetery rests nearby, the old coaches seem to hold their breath. A shadow crosses a window, and for a second, it feels like the next passenger has arrived after sunset. Number 14. Old Jail Bed and Breakfast. Taylor's Falls, 1884. The stone jail was built when this river town still carried the rough edge of logging days, travelers, and frontier justice. Its thick walls and iron cells were meant to hold trouble in place. Today, the building has become the old jail bed and breakfast, where guests can sleep where prisoners once waited through long northern nights. The setting makes the past feel close. Taylor's Falls sits near the St. Croix River, with cliffs, old streets, and a history shaped by lumber and river traffic. Inside the jail, the small rooms still remind people what the building used to be. Even with warm beds and friendly service, the iron bars keep the old story from disappearing. Guests have spoken of cell doors slamming when no one is near them, the sound sharp enough to stop a conversation. Others tell of a friendly young boy seen on the second and third floors, moving through the building as if he knows every corner. He does not seem cruel or threatening, but his sudden appearance has made more than one visitor freeze. The old jail is unusual because it asks people to rest inside a place built for fear. Maybe the sounds are old metal shifting in the night. Maybe the boy is only a glimpse shaped by nerves. But when the halls fall quiet and a cell door answers from the dark, the building remembers its first purpose. Sleep comes slowly there, under the weight of stone and silence. Number 15, Sudan Underground Mine. Sudan, 1882. Miners began pulling iron ore from deep beneath northern Minnesota, creating what became the state's oldest and deepest iron mine. The work was hard, hot, and dangerous. Men rode down in cages, drilled into rock, loaded ore, and trusted lamps, ropes, and each other under thousands of feet of stone near Lake Vermilion. The mine operated for 80 years until 1962, and later became a historic state park where visitors could descend in an authentic cage elevator. Going underground changes the body. The air cools, voices flatten, the dark feels heavy and close. Even before a ghost story is told, Sudan feels like a place where time moves differently. That is exactly what some legends describe. Visitors have claimed to hear faint pickaxes tapping far away, though the mine is no longer working. Others speak of figures like 19th century miners pushing wheelbarrows through the tunnels, seen only for a moment before the dark closes around them. The stories feel quiet, like work still being finished. Sudan's haunting is tied to labor, not drama. Generations of men gave their strength to those red rock walls, and the mine still holds the rhythm of their days. When the elevator rises back toward daylight, it is easy to feel that something remains below. Not a monster, not a scream, but the steady sound of old work echoing in the earth, where the dark keeps counting hours, far below the sun. Number 16, Historic Calumet Inn. Pipestone, 1888. The Calumet Inn opened near the railroad, built from the reddish local Sioux quartzite that gives the town its famous look. Travelers stepped off the train with dust on their coats and found a hotel that seemed grand for a prairie town, with tall windows, carved wood, and a dining room meant to impress anyone passing through in style. The inn belonged to the age when rail lines could make a small town feel connected to the whole country. Salesmen, families, performers, and workers came through its doors, while pipestone grew around stone quarries, farms, and main street businesses. At night, the lobby must have held voices from many places, all fading upstairs into long halls above before midnight. Those halls are where the ghost stories seem to linger. Guests have reported piano music drifting through the dining room when the space is empty and no musician is near the keys. Others speak of a well-dressed man in 1880s, clothing walking calmly past, as if late for supper, before fading into the quiet like smoke in the lamplight. The Calumet Inn feels haunted because it still looks ready for the next train. The floors creak, the old rooms breathe, and the red stone outside seems to hold the sunset long after dark. Number 17, Mantorville Opera House. Mantorville, late 1800s. The opera house rose in a small town already rich with limestone buildings, stagecoaches, and river valley history. It became a place where people gathered for plays, music, speeches, and laughter, a bright room in a quiet community. In a town like Mantorville, a stage could make the whole world feel close for one night. The theater survived because people kept caring for it. Actors still step into the light, and audiences still sit where earlier families once watched traveling shows and melodramas. But old theaters always have a second life after the curtain falls. Ropes hang still, props wait in corners, and backstage hallways turn every tiny sound into a possible footstep. Performers have told stories of cowboy boots walking through empty corridors, even when no one is there. Props seem to shift from where they were placed, as if unseen hands are preparing for a scene. And, in one of the stranger details, people have heard a meowing cat somewhere in the building, wandering like it belongs to the cast. The Mantorville Opera House is not frightening in a cruel way. It feels playful, like a show refusing to close. When the seats are empty and the stage lights are dark, the old building still seems to rehearse each night. A bootstep answers from backstage. A prop moves slightly, and the silence feels ready for one more final entrance from someone the audience cannot see. Number 18, Mayowood Mansion. Rochester, 1910. Mayowood began as the country home of Dr. Charles H. Mayo, one of the brothers who helped make the Mayo Clinic known around the world. The estate grew into a grand 38-room mansion surrounded by gardens, trees, and wide grounds where a busy medical family could step away from the pressure of the clinic for a while, far from the city noise. The house was more than a display of wealth. It held family dinners, holidays, visitors, and the quieter hours behind a famous name. Antiques, portraits, woodwork, and personal objects still make the rooms feel lived in. For many visitors, Mayowood is not only about medical history, it is about the private life that stood behind a public legacy. That deep family memory may be why some people speak of footsteps on the grounds or inside the house when no one should be walking. Staff and visitors have described the feeling of being watched with care, not danger. The stories often connect the sounds to the Mayo family, as if former residents still move through the home they loved. Mayowood does not feel like a haunted ruin. It feels preserved, almost protected. The rooms are polished, the lawns are quiet, and Rochester's modern medical world feels far away for a moment. Number 19, Mrs. B's Bed and Breakfast Inn. Lanesboro, 1872. The stone building now remembered as Mrs. B's Bed and breakfast began as a hotel in a Root River town, shaped by mills, farms, travelers, and bluff country roads. Built from local limestone, it stood through the railroad years, when guests arrived with muddy boots, trunks, and stories from places beyond the valley and along the river after long, dusty days. Local tradition says famous frontier showman Buffalo Bill Cody was among the notable guests connected to the inn's past. Whether people came for business, travel, or rest, the building gathered the kind of history small hotels collect best. Names written in ledgers, meals served downstairs, and footsteps that grew familiar on the stairs above. The hauntings here are gentle but memorable. Guests have spoken of a lady in white moving through the lobby, her pale figure seen just long enough to make the room feel colder. Others tell of a playful child in the garden room, sometimes connected to the sound or sight of a ball bouncing where no child is supposed to be. Mrs. B's feels haunted in the same way an old photograph can feel alive. Nothing has to scream. The river town grows quiet. The limestone walls hold the day's warmth, and the hallways settle into darkness. Then a small sound rises from a room, or a white shape crosses the lobby, and the inn seems to remember every traveler who ever stopped there for the night. Number 20. Minneapolis Institute of Art. Minneapolis, 1915. The Minneapolis Institute of Art opened as a serious home for paintings, sculpture, and objects from across the world. Over time, it became one of Minnesota's great cultural landmarks. People visit for beauty, history, and quiet, moving from bright galleries into rooms that feel older than the city outside the walls. Among its most atmospheric spaces are the historic period rooms, including interiors built with old wood, stone, furniture, and design from earlier centuries. The Connecticut and Tudor rooms can feel less like displays and more like places someone stepped out of for only a minute. That feeling grows stronger when crowds thin and the museum settles after closing. Security guards and staff have shared stories of figures seen in these rooms after hours. A shape passes through the corner of the eye, or a presence seems to stand near the antique walls. Then the space is empty again. Museums are full of portraits and carved faces, so the mind can play tricks, but some stories sound too steady to brush away. The Minneapolis Institute of Art is not a haunted house, which makes the tales more interesting. It is a place built to protect the past, and perhaps the past sometimes answers. When the galleries go silent, and the period rooms sit under soft light, it is easy to imagine old wood remembers its first home. Number 21. St. James Hotel. Red Wing, 1875. The St. James Hotel opened beside the Mississippi River when steamboats, railroads, and grain trade helped the town grow. Its brick walls, high windows, and grand rooms welcomed merchants, travelers, and river people who needed rest after long journeys. From the start, it felt like a proud doorway into Minnesota. The hotel was built by local business leaders who wanted Red Wing to have a place that matched its busy riverfront. Over the years, weddings, dinners, and quiet nights filled the rooms. Guests came and went, but the old building kept its polished wood, soft light, and Victorian mood, as if it still belonged to the River Age. That long memory may explain the stories. Visitors and staff have reported a woman in a white dress moving through the halls, seen for only a moment before she is gone. Others speak of a man in work overalls, as if some old laborer still has a job to finish. Cold spots and soft whispers are also said to drift through empty corridors. The St. James does not feel like a place abandoned by time. At night, the Mississippi darkens outside and the hotel settles into a hush. Then a whisper rises, a floorboard answers, and one more guest seems to pass along the hall, quiet as river fog, still looking for a room. Number 22. Warden's House Museum. Stillwater, 1853. The Warden's House was built near the Minnesota Territorial Prison at a time when Stillwater was a young river town shaped by lumber, law, and hard work. For more than 60 years, prison wardens and their families lived there, close enough to feel the prison's shadow, but still trying to keep a normal home. The house later became a museum, preserving rooms filled with furniture, photographs, and stories from early Minnesota. Its stone walls remember a strange mix of family life and prison history. Children once played there, while locked cells stood nearby. Visitors today can feel that contrast the moment they step inside the old rooms. The most famous story centers on a wooden cradle on the second floor. People say it has rocked on its own, slowly, without a hand nearby. Others have reported seeing a woman in 19th century clothing on the upper landing, watching quietly before fading from sight. The stories are not loud, but they make the house feel awake. What lingers at the Warden's house is not just a ghost tale. It is the weight of a home built beside sorrow and duty. After closing time, the rooms grow still, and the cradle waits in the quiet. If it begins to move, even a little, it feels as if the house is remembering a child, a mother, or a night no one ever wrote down. Some say the upstairs air grows soft and cold, like a lullaby remembered by stone, wood, and shadows. Number 23. Four Paws Restaurant. St. Paul, 1870. The mansion, later known as Four Paws, was built during a time when Summit Avenue and the surrounding city were filling with wealth, ambition, and fine homes. Its towers, woodwork, and elegant rooms reflected a city becoming more important with each passing year. Later, the building became a restaurant, but the house kept its private mood. The name is tied to Joseph Forepaugh, a successful businessman whose family story became part of St. Paul's old mansion lore. Like many grand houses, it held dinners, servants, secrets, and long evenings behind heavy doors. That is the kind of place where legends can grow, especially when the rooms still feel dressed for company. The spirit most often mentioned is Molly, remembered in local stories as a gentle presence. Guests and workers have reported the scent of lavender perfume drifting through rooms when no bottle or flower can explain it. Objects sometimes seem to move without help, and a quiet feeling passes over the dining spaces, as if someone is checking the tables. Four Paws feels haunted in a polished, sorrowful way. The plates shine, the staircases curve, and the old mansion still knows how to welcome people. Yet beneath the candlelight, the past presses close. When lavender suddenly fills the air, it feels like Molly has stepped through the room again, unseen but not forgotten, leaving only her fragrance behind. Number 24. Somson Hall at Winona State University. Winona, early 1900s. Somson Hall rose on the campus of Winona State, giving the school a strong academic home with Gothic lines, tall windows, and a serious face. Generations of students walked through its doors carrying books, worries, and plans for the future. By day, it belongs to classrooms. By night, it feels older than the campus around it. College buildings collect a special kind of history. They hold nervous exams, late study sessions, teachers' voices, and footsteps from students who only stay for a few years before moving on. Somson Hall has seen those patterns repeat again and again, until the halls seem to carry a memory of everyone who hurried through them. Stories tell of a ghostly professor wandering the corridors, as if still thinking over a lesson or searching for a classroom. Students and faculty have reported footsteps echoing when the building should be empty. Others mention sudden cold drafts that slip through the hallways with no open door nearby, leaving the air strangely still afterward. A school is built on questions, and this haunting leaves one more. Who keeps walking after the lectures are done? When the last light clicks off and the stone halls cool, it is easy to imagine a scholar moving past the doors, still carrying some unfinished thought into the dark. Some say the stairwell keeps one final old lesson. Number 25. Glensheen Mansion. Duluth, 1908. Glensheen Mansion was completed on the shore of Lake Superior as the grand home of the Congdon family. With 39 rooms, gardens, servant spaces, and a view of the water, it showed the wealth that mining, railroads, and industry brought to northern Minnesota. Even today, the estate feels built for another age. The mansion is famous for its craftsmanship, from carved wood to detailed rooms filled with family history. But Glensheen also carries a darker public memory because of the 1977 murders of heiress Elizabeth Congdon and nurse Velma Piatila. Tours focus on the larger history of the house, yet many visitors know that real tragedy once entered those walls. That is why every unexplained sound seems sharper there. Some guests report sudden chills in the upper halls. Others say they have heard footsteps where no one is walking or seen shadowy figures vanish near doorways. In a house so carefully preserved, even silence feels organized, making any small disturbance stand out. Glensheen is not only a ghost story, it is a place where beauty, wealth, family, and sorrow all share the same rooms. Outside, Lake Superior keeps moving against the shore, cold and endless. Inside, the mansion holds still. When a footstep sounds above, it feels as if the past is crossing the floor once more, asking not to be forgotten. Number 26. Water Street Inn. Stillwater, 1890. The Water Street Inn opened during the logging boom, when the St. Croix River helped carry timber, workers, and money through the town. For its time, the building felt modern and proud. with indoor plumbing and an elevator, rare comforts that told visitors Stillwater was not just a rough river stop. The inn stood near the water, where steamboats, lumbermen, merchants, and travelers once filled the streets. Even today, the old rooms seem tied to that busy age. The brick walls, tall windows, and river views make it easy to imagine muddy boots at the door, voices in the lobby, and cold wind slipping in from the river after dark during winter. The ghost most often mentioned is said to be a Civil War-era soldier. Guests have reported hearing a quiet male voice in rooms on the second floor, speaking softly when no one else is there. Others notice a strange, lingering scent, as if tobacco, old cloth, or some forgotten trace of the past has drifted back into the room after midnight. The Water Street Inn feels haunted because it sits between two histories, the bright life of a river town and the sorrow carried by men who lived through war. When the St. Croix turns black at night and the halls grow still, a whisper from the second floor can feel like a soldier trying to be remembered, one soft sentence at a time beneath the old roof. Outside, the river listens from the dark water below. Number 27. Fairmont Opera House. Fairmont, 1901. The Fairmont Opera House opened when small towns still treated theaters as windows to the wider world. People came for music, lectures, plays, and community gatherings, stepping out of ordinary streets into a room where lights, curtains, and voices could make one evening feel grand for everyone. For more than a century, the building survived changing tastes, quiet years, and new generations of performers. Old opera houses are never just wood and seats. They hold nervous actors behind the curtain, applause from packed nights, and the hush that falls right before a song or line is spoken. That kind of silence can feel almost alive. Visitors and performers have reported footsteps crossing the empty stage when no rehearsal is underway. Some feel watched from the darker parts of the theater, as if an audience is present after everyone has gone home. Others have seen figures in elegant period clothing, standing for a moment before fading into the dim old interior near the walls. At night, the seats wait, the curtains hang still, and the floorboards remember movement. Then a step sounds where no actor stands, and the room seems ready for one more show, played for an audience no one can see in the dark. Some say the old balcony holds its breath before the first unseen note begins. Number 28. Minnesota State Public School Orphanage Museum. Owatonna, 1886. The Minnesota State Public School opened as a home for children who had nowhere safe to go. Over the decades, thousands of boys and girls lived on the campus, learning lessons, doing chores, and sleeping in dormitories far from the families they once knew. The school operated until 1945 in Owatonna. Today, part of the old campus is preserved as a museum with exhibits that try to tell the children's stories with care. It is not just a haunted place. It is a place of real childhoods, with records, beds, photographs, and memories of kids who grew up under strict rules, shared rooms, and the hope that someone might take them home someday. Visitors have reported hearing children laughing in empty halls and the quick sound of running feet where no child is present. Some say books shift on shelves without being touched. Others describe the friendly shadow of a little boy skipping down a hallway, seen only briefly before the building becomes still again at the far end. The orphanage museum is haunting because the history is already powerful. Every echo feels tied to a child who once waited, studied, played, or cried there. When the rooms grow quiet, a small laugh in the distance does not feel like a trick. It feels like the campus remembering its children and refusing to let their voices disappear from the halls. Some say the stairwell still carries small footsteps after closing time. Number 29. Anger Tower, Duluth, 1939. Anger Tower rose from the hill above the city as a stone lookout over Lake Superior, the harbor, and the forests beyond. Built in honor of Norwegian immigrant and businessman Bert Enger, the tower became one of Duluth's most beloved landmarks. By day, the tower feels peaceful. Families walk the grounds, tourists take photographs, and ships appear tiny on the cold blue water below. But its height also gives it a lonely feeling. Wind moves around the stone. Footsteps echo inside the stairway, and the city below can seem far away, especially when fog begins to roll in from the lake. Local legend says a mysterious figure has been seen circling the highest levels of the tower. From below, it looks like a person moving near the top, calm and steady. But when visitors climb the stairs to find them, the figure is gone. No door closes, no footsteps answer. Only the wind waits at the landing in silence. It is a watchtower, a memorial, and a lookout over one of America's greatest lakes. At dusk, when the harbor lights begin to shine and the stone turns gray, a shape near the top feels possible. Then it vanishes, leaving only Duluth below and the lake breathing in the dark. Number 30. Minneapolis City Hall, Minneapolis, 1888. Construction began on the Great City Hall and Courthouse, a massive Romanesque building meant to show the confidence of a growing city. Its stone walls, arches, clock tower, and long corridors made it feel serious from the start. For decades, people came there for courts, records, city business, and decisions that changed lives. Buildings like this collect heavy history. Judges, clerks, officers, workers, and worried families all passed through its halls. Some arrived hoping for justice. Others came with fear in their stomach. The grand architecture may look beautiful from outside, but inside, the building has always carried the weight of law, punishment, paperwork, and waiting. The most famous spirit is often called John, a shadowy figure tied to the 5th floor. People have reported seeing him in the hallway, only for the shape to disappear before they can get close. Others hear footsteps echoing when no one is around, or feel sudden cold spots in places that were warm moments earlier during quiet hours. Minneapolis City Hall feels haunted because it was built for facts, records, and proof, yet its own mystery will not stay filed away. When the clock tower rises over the city at night and the corridors empty, one last sound may cross the 5th floor. Then silence returns, leaving the building to guard both the city's history and the shadow named John.
If you enjoy this video, please click the like button.
And don't forget to subscribe to the channel.
See you in the next one.